our ecosystem benefits. The plants are a lot healthier, and it's better for wildlife. And it's going to allow those mangroves to reproduce a lot better than the ones that are cut down to 6 feet. So if you live in a waterfront property area, try to start that conversation. And then the last one I want to mention is support the climate change adaptation and mitigation measures that these folks are trying to bring forward, and upgrades to the infrastructure that we need to keep excess nutrients out of our waterways, keep our water quality good, and as Molly said, give nature a chance to help us adapt to climate change.
Well, if you're having trouble writing down all of these things, remember you can go to our video.
So this is what I do. This is what I love to do is I can come out to your neighborhood and we can talk about it. So everything that has been mentioned, it will be mentioned here, is very important. But sometimes it's hard to implement it. You hear about it and you think, gosh, I want to do this, and then you get home and you stare at your own thing and you're going, how am I supposed to do it here? And so that's what I come out there for. And so I will come out there and will say, I don't even know how to start to remove nuisance exotics in my preserve area. I will come out and I will bring my trusty gang of thieves out there with me, and we'll talk about it. And so what I love to do is, I don't know everything, but I know a lot of people who do know everything. And so if you can call me and say, I have a question about getting ready for disaster preparedness. I say, you call my friend Miranda, she runs the neighborhood grant thing, and she can come out and we'll talk about it. Or I would like to know about, how I'm going to improve my landscape or whatever. And so I can get you somebody, and we can come out and we can take a look. Another thing that I love to do is, a lot of times what you want to do, there's money out there for that, and grant opportunities out there. And so I can't say that I have my finger on the pulse of all the grant money, but I do know that a lot of the local grants, and a lot of them are very, very easy to get. The Sarasota Bay Estuary Program has got a fantastic grant to help with water quality and habitat restoration, and so I can help funnel some of that money to you.
Molly, identify your organization again for people. And are you available to anyone anywhere in the county?
So I work for Sarasota County Stormwater. I am the Neighborhood Environmental Stewardship Team Coordinator, the NEST Coordinator, and my job is basically to help you try to get what you want, as far as if you want to make any kind of improvements. What was the second question?
No, that's fine.
What was that?
You're available.
Well, to everybody in the county?
Anybody and everybody, but not really. So I can come and talk to anybody in the county that I want to, but because we are territorial, and your taxes go to pay different places, so we don't do business in the city of Longboat, or the town of Longboat Key. We don't do business in the city of Northport, and we don't do business in the city of Venice. But I will still come and talk to you. Just don't tell my boss, and please take this off the video. But I'd be happy to come talk to you, because a lot of the funding opportunities you can cross pollinate. So,
I'm talking as a resident now. What can I do to get involved? Buy flood insurance. I own my house. I don't have to buy flood insurance, but I live near the water, and I buy flood insurance. That's one method of protecting yourself, and especially if sea level is going to rise. My house is predicted to lose half my front yard in about 15 years, based on some of those charts I've been seeing you all present. So I'm buying flood insurance, though I don't have a mortgage on my house. The other thing to do as a resident, I think, for water quality is, if you're on septic, don't throw paper and all kinds of what I think called garbage disposer. You use a garbage disposer and you crunch up all your eggshells. Don't use that. That adds to your septic. It clogs it up and it won't function. All that yucky stuff is just going to flow up and out into your swells. All right. Get your septics pumped up every 2 to 5 years, depending on how many people are in your house and how much use you have.
Elizabeth, can you talk about the new system that's been introduced for septic tanks, which makes a big difference in how they function?
Aerobic treatment units. Oh boy, that's a two-edged sword right there. Aerobic treatment units is like a mini wastewater plant. Basically, It's a septic system, but you add air to it. The air helps the natural bacteria grow and break down all the pollutants. Okay, and then when those die, there's a settling chamber in there, and then they'll settle out, and the supinate, the better stuff, will just flow out into your drain field. That's what it is. It's basically a septic system, and they add air to it. And I say there's a two-edged sword, because these things were designed not to be a better system, but the original intent of these septic systems, these ATUs, aerobic treatment units, is for houses that doesn't have enough space to put a standard septic system. Because if you, the Department of Health allowed you to do these ATU systems so you can have a smaller drain field by introducing air, so it's supposed to be less of a, so it's higher quality water going into the drain field, which then reduces the size of the drain field. So it kind of offset the goodness of the air.
Okay, I understand, and that's important for people to know, that
Yes.
this is not actually an advance.
And it's a maintenance nightmare.
Right, okay. All right, well, thank you. Carolyn?
From Longboat's standpoint, just become more educated, plant a tree, recycle, just do those basic things, become more aware of what you're doing and try to conserve energy.
This is a little bit outside of my area of expertise, but as a resident, I'm really looking into the rain system to capture. It rains a lot, and my wife has a garden, but I'm the one watering in it. So I have to water all her plants. So, and if you water it every day, you know, there's several gallons of water that you're using that we got plenty. Here in Florida, we're blessed because we have plenty of sun, and it's called the Sunshine State, and a lot of water because we have a lot of rain. So if we can maximize the use of those two free resources, that can go long ways. And not only for that, but probably some developments that can use that rainwater to do the sprinkling system and it's stormwater harvesting and solar. Now solar, it's an investment and some money unless there's a grant that I'm not aware of somewhere there, because I will sign for it right now. But I think that technology, if we look at the price of solar and all these new technologies, it's getting down significantly because the first electric cars and then the first solar panels were cost prohibitive. But I think and I hope that as time passes, new technologies, new materials come in the pipeline and they get to the point that everybody will be able to afford to have a solar system in their house to at least complement the grid.
Thank you. Can you pass the microphone? What I'm going to do with the questions from the audience, if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to have among Stevie and Lee and Darcy, you dice it out as to which of the three of you will answer the questions that I have, okay? And if none of you can answer it adequately and there's someone over here, please holler, okay? Because there's several different aspects. First question, in respect to lowering of water and fertilizer and to encourage pumping of Florida native and Florida friendly societies, is there a movement to discover the planting or discourage the planting of lawns throughout the area? Are you aware of anything?
So in Extension, we do the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program and are out every day at our plant clinics that are at multiple locations across the county, at our office, and then at these sort of site consultations and classes and sort of preaching the word of Florida Friendly Landscaping. So that's our effort, and one of the 9 principles of that, definitely several of them touch on reducing the lawn, increasing native plants, that kind of thing. Does that answer the question?
Okay, did the city and Sarasota County join the American Flood Coalition?
didn't, and we didn't, there was, a lot going around at that time. We met with them for, I know Northport did as well, right? So we did join the Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition. We also started the Climate Council of Sarasota Manatee. I facilitated for about 2.5 years the Intergovernmental Climate Working Group, where we all kind of got together for staff. We're part of a Florida Sustainability Directors Network that focuses on these issues, and the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. We passed a resolution to stay in the Paris Climate Agreements. It was just one of those timing things where it was just too much to kind of bring forward, especially with the federal focus on it. So we decided not to, but it's something that comes up often, and we may, pick back up in the future.
There is a perception that the municipalities don't agree on the same projection of sea level rise by 2050. Is there any standardization going on among all the municipalities in the county?
I am so glad that you brought that up, because actually one of the organizations I just mentioned, the Climate Council of Sarasota Manatee, we really started because we wanted to better communicate sea level rise projections and climate projections in general in the same way. And I actually don't think there is a lot of disagreement amongst the municipalities on what sea level rise projections we're using. It's that oftentimes we're saying them in different ways. For example, I think perhaps the NOAA projections, the town of Longboat mentioned 0.7 to 1 point, I think I wrote it down, 1.4 or so, was probably compared to sea levels in 2000 or 1990. When I mentioned my 1.2 to 1.44 sea level rise projection, I was comparing it to 2017 sea levels. So it's just little differences like that we want to better streamline and communicate so that there isn't a confusion. But a lot of us are using NOAA projections, which are adopted by the Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition. And there's also Army Corps of Engineers has some projections that differ slightly, but when you really look closely at the different projections and the agencies that are running those models, there's not much of a difference between them.
Okay, electric cars have been mentioned several times. Please explain about strategies for safe, clean battery disposal.
So I will share that the battery technology is evolving and improving as rapidly as the solar technology did over the last decade or so. So the battery technology now is not what it'll be in the 8 years from now when the battery warranties on all these cars will be expiring. So my expectation is that, and what is already happening is that the car manufacturers are going to capture these batteries and recycle them, but either into additional car batteries or into other uses. And what's happened in the past is that the car batteries end up being used to be solar storage at some places. So there's some really great stories about Prius batteries being turned into off-site generators at national parks. So there's a tremendous opportunity for continuing to use the batteries in ways that may not be appropriate for long distance driving, but are appropriate for many other uses. So I think the opportunity for very fast improvement in this technology is just mind-boggling. It's going to get much better very quickly.
The celery fields is an area, a green space. It cools, it filters rain, it clears water, and it clears air. As employees of the municipalities, but especially of Sarasota County, how can you help this effort and help the concerned citizens? Do you have any recommendations to them as to how to approach the county regarding this to protect and preserve the green at the celery fields?
I'll just give you the point of view from the stormwater. And so the celery fields was envisioned as a place to remedy the flooding of many, many residences in some of the storms leading up to 2000. And so for the Sarasota County stormwater, the celery fields is a flood mitigation and water quality part piece. And so you've got the cells that are supposed to hold water back, and they took a lot of the flooding pressure off of the surrounding communities. And The purpose of the celery fields has morphed quite a bit. It's become a little bit more faceted since its initial inception back in the probably the mid-80s to early 90s. And so, from the Sarasota County stormwater perspective, it is a functioning stormwater management area. You hear about that for Lake Okeechobee. They use it to run water that's not so clean, and what they do is they run it through and they give it the kiss of nature to try to clean it up. And so from that aspect, that's how we try to operate and maintain the celery fields as a stormwater management area that gives us both water quality and water quantity aspects. Now, as far as the other parcels around there, once again, the initial intent of the celery fields has changed over the years, and so how it changes is once again up to the forces of zoning and development, and so that's outside the scope of what Sarasota County Stormwater sees the celery fields.
Any other input on that? Okay, the last question may be something that you might want to divide, maybe Elizabeth and somebody over here. The biggest city in Sarasota County is Northport. Essentially, it's located in an estuary, is the statement that is made here. Question has the county identified geographically the most vulnerable areas and the population issues, I presume? If so, what steps are being taken? I would imagine it would be the plant population. And if so, what steps are being taken to protect them?
People,
Elizabeth,
not
do you want to take
plants.
that one? I think they're talking about human population and flood areas.
Okay,
It's about humans.
human, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, Northport is the biggest city in Sarasota County. What steps are we taking to prevent flooding? Is that the question?
Yes.
Well-
Protecting the estuaries. Okay, I will speak to that too.
Protecting people.
Um,
Protecting people? I'll answer both.
Identifying the most vulnerable of the estuary and, I guess, regulating population.
I think the estuary that's mentioned there is called the Big Slough. Big Slough is like a very shallow riverine, kind of a marshy wetland coming through Northport. In Northport, it's called the Mayakaji Creek, and the surrounding areas do flood. Okay, so what are we doing about that? We're almost at the end of a very big slough flood reduction study, where it's a very complicated study, but basically we came up with several recommendations on what to do about reducing flooding. And I'm not gonna go into any detail on that, but we do have that study almost wrapped up, and we're trying to get a permit from SWIFT, but for some other methods. One of the things I would like us to do, and it's gonna be in front of commission in December, is to talk about buying the flooded properties in order to prevent further building in the floodplain. And the flooded roads, if we buy them, we make them into parks, so we don't have to spend the money in maintaining, getting people out of the flooded, roads in a storm event. So that'll be cost savings on the city part. So we have already bought quite a lot of property in the floodplain along the creek, in that Big Slough floodplain, which we call Mayakachi Creek. And on either side, we've done quite a bit of buying of those properties to preserve as parklands already, and we are continuing that.
I do have another question. I'm gonna try and paraphrase this question, because the question is being put to staff members here that you've asked, and it's really not a staff mandate that's possible with this question. And I think you'll understand when I read it, and then I'll adapt to it. The question is, with more than 35,000 new homes planned now for development, why doesn't Sarasota County mandate native landscapes, permeable surfaces, stricter stormwater standards to take in the account of the volume? Well, of course, no one here is in a position to be able to really address that adequately. Their job mostly is to apply the rules and regulations that the municipalities and the county have given them. However, they might be able to make suggestions regarding things as staff's suggestions. I don't know whether this is appropriate, excuse me, for you to address or not. Would you be willing to step into that issue?
And so, yes, you're absolutely right. We've got a lot of people coming here every day. It's paradise, right? And so, things are built at a certain standard, and those standards are passed down. The state regulated water management district, and a lot of the municipalities have their own regulations and their own rules. However, that does not have to be what we live by. And so, you know, we live in a community that was built a certain way, and it's supposed to operate a certain way. But that doesn't mean, it's like driving a car. You get a car and you drive it you're supposed to drive it a certain way, or you can, but that doesn't mean that you drive it until it drops. If you take care of it and you maintain it and you keep it a good looking car, it'll last you for a long time. It'll still be a good looking car. That's what we're hoping to get a lot of communities to do, is take care of your stormwater system. It is what it is. And so if you employ a lot of the practices that we talk about, like Florida-friendly planting and reducing your fertilizer use and stormwater harvesting and pervious pavers, the place that you have is not the place that you always have to have. It can be better. And so that's what we all propose, is for you to take what you were given and make it better.
Well, and I would like to add to that those of you watching this video and those of you sitting in this audience are the people who can determine what the political decisions are. You have to get engaged and you have to participate in your government. If you don't, then you get what gets pushed through by some significant groups that have vested interests. And that's what has to happen here. We all have to work together. There's more than one leg to government, and citizens are a major one. Thank you very much.